All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Game Day Preview. Corey Curtis back with Julian Minutso one more time as we get ready for another weekend of college football with Vanderbilt and the Tennessee Volunteers. But Julian, this week, a guaranteed no-loss weekend for the Tennessee Vols.
Yeah, on the bye and feeling good, especially after getting the win this past week. Stealing one, you kind of feel like holding on in a hostile environment against a very good Mississippi State team that was picked last in the SEC. Playing a lot better than expected. Had to come up with some big defensive scores in that game.
Yeah.
The offense,
stop at the end.
A couple maybe questionable penalty calls, some drops as well by some receivers. Joey Aguilar willed them to win at the end, and
Huge
then
drive.
The defense stepped up with the big stop that they needed in the OT.
Arian Carter, 17 tackles, broke up the pass on the final play. He was tremendous for Tennessee. And also, I should say, good time for the bye for them. 2 of their last 3 games going to overtime. This is legitimately a good time for a bye for Tennessee to get some rest for the rest of the season.
Yeah, because Mississippi State, that's a team that could beat you up. Georgia, obviously, that's
big physical
that
game.
was a big physical game. You know, the extra football that they've played. So, at what are they, 4-1 now?
Yeah.
That's, I think, given the schedule, that's a pretty good feeling if you're Tennessee, because everything is still right in front of you.
5-0 would be a better feeling.
5-0 would be better,
Yes.
but everything is still in front of you. You can still play your way into a potential playoff.
All right, more Tennessee in a minute. First, we're going to focus on what is the game of the week in the Southeastern Conference. Game Day is going to be in Tuscaloosa for Vanderbilt and Alabama. And the first thing I want to start with on this with Julian, is when the opening betting line came out, I thought it would be Alabama and 5.5 or 6.5. It was Alabama and 13.5. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure out why.
My guess is because Alabama just beat Georgia.
So what?
And they are putting a lot of stock into that. They're also maybe thinking a revenge game for Alabama.
Maybe that would be the bigger reason.
You're at home. Because if at the start of the season we thought Alabama would run Vanderbilt in this game, that at the start of the season, before anything got played, I said I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama ran Vanderbilt off the field during this game because of last season.
I know they would want to.
Sure. As the season has played out, that's probably what's made it a little bit more surprising, is because obviously Vanderbilt's looked excellent the way they could score the ball.
Fourth highest scoring team in the country.
Alabama has not looked like the standard of Alabama that we've seen. So
averaging less than 4 yards.
So I guess the fact that they're home, revenge game, and you just beat Georgia, so they're rolling off the high. You could also flip it around though and say, this could be a emotional letdown game because of how much that Georgia game was.
There's no way.
If you're Alabama,
they've been pointing to this game since last year.
I don't know. I look at Kalen DeBoer's face after he ran on the field against Georgia, and it looked like relief.
Do you know what the look on his face is going to be if they lose this game? It's going to be, I need to find a realtor, okay, because I got to get out of town. All right? So, I mean, that relief will not last long. And look, I'm not saying this to disparage Alabama. I don't think that much of the college football world is truly watching.
That's also true.
What Vanderbilt is.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the 4th highest scoring team in the country. They are averaging 49 points per game. They are averaging 6.5 yards per carry on offense. Diego Pavia is playing as well as any quarterback in the country.
This is probably also why his Heisman odds are what they are, and they're not higher, and because a lot of the country hasn't seen them yet. Hasn't seen them play a team of Alabama's quality.
74% of his passes he's completing.
Yeah.
74. All right? The kid is playing out of his mind. He's got weapons now. And this isn't me saying, well, they're going to go down and roll Alabama. They could go play with Alabama. They have the players in the trenches to play with Alabama. I talked with ESPN analyst Fozzie Whitaker. We're going to have that later in the show. But that one of the things we talk about is the physicality in this matchup, and that Vanderbilt is actually built to play with Alabama in the trenches. That's never been said before.
Right. The run game is going to be the thing for me. Is can Vanderbilt establish
Yep.
that run game. They've
'Cause
got
that's how they wear people out.
That's how they wear people out. And by the fourth quarter, you've seen in a lot of their games, those other quality teams that they've played can't catch up. On the flip side of that, can Vanderbilt's secondary, which gives up about 200 passing yards a game,
Yeah, this is a big question.
can they stop the receiving core of Alabama? Ryan Williams, Horton, Bernard, guys like that, because that is what Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator at Alabama, and Kalen DeBoer, they've liked to do since they were together at Washington with Michael Penix and that historic offense, and it's what they like to do, with Alabama. And if you watch that Alabama-Georgia game, Alabama was shut out in that second half, but they were very creative in the way they used the passing game in order to keep drives alive, which ultimately won them the game and ran out that clock too.
Yeah, I ultimately think this is a high-scoring football game. But this is a real opportunity game for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt can set themselves up to be very competitive for a spot on the college football playoff with a victory, and Diego Pavia can thrust himself into the top 3 or 4 of the Heisman with the victory down in Tuscaloosa. The Doors have given themselves this opportunity on a national stage, and they sound like they're ready.
Like every other game, I believe, just playing a physical game. Offensive line, we just need to play a physical game just like every other game.
How cool is it to be part of a game that's the game day is going to be there?
Amazing, honestly. We're excited to be there.
Alabama's a really good team. They're an improved team from a year ago, I feel like. I see a change in identity in them. The quarterback's playing really well. They're possessing the ball on offense. Defensively, they're more multiple than they were a year ago, seem to be going further down the call sheet and having success that way. And they have good players. They're doing a good job of positioning those guys to have success. So it'll be a great challenge for us. But, we obviously love our team, and we understand it's a chance for our program to go down and to play to our best, and it will be about us. That's how we see it. We need to go and play our game, not get caught up in the environment. It should be a great atmosphere for college football. Not get caught up in the externals around the game, but simply focus on playing good football.
How do you think beating Alabama last year maybe changed outside perceptions of Vanderbilt?
I think it was like a oh crap moment for everybody else. Like, we knew where we were headed, we knew where we were going, and we knew it was only a matter of time before we showed the world what we could do. The good thing is still nobody believes that we can do it again at Bama and stuff like that. And so every day we're just a chip on our shoulder team, and we're going out there not to prove it to anybody else, but we don't care. But just to kind of put Vanderbilt on the map. It's the best school. It's in the SEC. It's in Nashville. Great fan base, great culture, great coaches. And so for us, it's about just going out there, having fun, and proving it to ourselves.
That's linebacker Langston Patterson. Before that, of course, Clark Lee, and starting things off with center Jordan White, saying how excited he was for this football game, and I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, the Doors, we laughed at them at the start of the year saying, hey, we want to go to the playoff, compete for national championships.
It was 2 years ago, Clark Lee said that.
Yeah.
And then we laughed him out of SEC media days.
And they seem to be getting the last laugh and can continue laughing if they win and put themselves in the driver's seat for a playoff spot.
So ask yourself this, Julian, if I want to watch this football game, where do I watch it?
Oh, you can watch it on News 2, WKRN, 2:30 kickoff.
That's right.
And then we'll have the highlights at 10 o'clock.
11 a.m. It gets started with Kentucky at Georgia. It'd be very interesting to see how Georgia responds after losing to Alabama again. I mean, that's what Kalen DeBoer is hanging his whole Alabama tenure on right now. He's 2-0 against Kirby Smart and Georgia. Yeah. And then you've got Vanderbilt and Alabama. I mean, that looks like the biggest game of the weekend to me. But we will see. And then in prime time, you've got Miami and Florida State at 6:30. That's got to be a bounce back game for Florida State after losing to Virginia.
Bad loss.
Yeah, and because if they're not ready, they'll get run by the Hurricanes.
Yeah, Carson Beck's played a lot better than I thought and I anticipated.
Yeah, it's even yes, I agree with you. But even in their win over Florida, 160 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He didn't rule the world that night. I think he needs to get back to what he was doing earlier in the season to prove himself indeed. For that football team. Earlier, and it was yesterday, in fact, Fozzie Whitaker ESPN analyst, will be on the call of Tennessee or Vanderbilt and Alabama this weekend. And I got a chance to talk with him on a Zoom call about the game. And believe it or not, he's just as excited as we are. All right, we're joined now by college football analyst Fozzie Whitaker. And, you know, you've been around the game a long time. Did you ever think you would have a Vanderbilt-Alabama matchup with this much on the line?
You know, if you'd have said that, I mean, even 2 years before Diego Pavia did what he did a season ago, and kind of what's been at stake, I would have probably laughed and chuckled, just like probably 99% of the rest of the country and those that follow college football. But I would have never guessed that a matchup of this magnitude between these two programs would be the highlight event. And seeing how College Game Day is there, it goes to show you the strides that Vanderbilt has made, the investment that Clark Lee has made, and then the impact that Diego Pavia has been able to provide for Vanderbilt, and then obviously what Alabama has been able to do, defeating Georgia just last week. This is a game of epic proportions, and it definitely has CFP kind of implications when you start thinking about where these two teams are and where they can go after this game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because if Vanderbilt gets to 6-0, it has a South Carolina victory on its resume and an Alabama victory on its resume, both on the road. They are a serious playoff contender.
Yeah, and I think the way that they've been playing also, you can't ignore them. This is not the same Vandy that we've seen in years past. This is not the ones that you could just roll out your team. Oh, we made a mistake. We could still recover from it by the time the second or third quarter rolls around, and in the fourth quarter is typically not a game. Those days are long gone. And I always tip my hat off to Clark Lee for what he's been able to establish from a foundational standpoint and a cultural aspect. These guys play hard. And then if you just take a look over the past 4 or 5 years of the talent increase that he's been able to create and the depth that he's had. We've never talked about depth at Vanderbilt in length or in detail. And now you can see some of those guys being able to make plays. And Vanderbilt has always had stud players. Don't get me wrong, right? They usually have a really good quarterback, or they have
one or two. They don't have the depth to go toe to toe.
They have one or two on the field that can go play anywhere in the country. But if you look at this team right now, there are multiple players that you can plug and play with the best of the best. And I think that's attributed to where we are in the landscape of college football and the parity that's been created. But at the end of the day, they're getting the most out of those players too. It's one thing to have them on your roster. It's another thing for them to perform and compete at the level that you expect them to, and do that above and beyond. And I think Vanderbilt is a perfect example of a team that's been able to utilize that type of mantra of creating talent and then developing it and then being who they're supposed to be right now.
Well, I want to talk about Pavia in a second, but first, I never thought I would see Vanderbilt have the guys in the trenches on both sides to go toe-to-toe with an Alabama team. And that truly is the difference in this year's team. It's at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I think that's where you can even revert back to last year's game. Was Vanderbilt was more physical than Alabama last year. Like it wasn't a fluke win that Vandy had a season ago against this same or similar team, obviously different players. But I mean, the discrepancy between recruiting has always been there. It didn't matter, right? You had guys that wanted to fight in the trenches. You had guys that were willing to sacrifice within the trenches. And just that want and fight and the need to be able to win, I thought was the biggest proponent to why Vanderbilt controlled the line of scrimmages a year ago, and what they've continued to create from a momentum perspective, even from last year. And then now going into this year, undefeated, in my opinion, a top 15 team in the country. That's exactly where Vanderbilt stands, and they can go toe-to-toe with Alabama yet again in the trenches, and probably have a couple of guys that I think could win those one-on-one battles if they were to just go outright head-to-head matchup. So I do think the trenches is where Vanderbilt has been most improved. Because that's not a typical position, or on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball, that Vanderbilt has had a ton of success, especially you talk about the next level guys and the guys that are the one or two guys that we talked about in the past that could play on any team and went on to play at the next level. they're usually not on the line from Vanderbilt. And so now you're seeing that narrative change, and you're starting to see the impact of what a great line of scrimmage can actually attribute and have to your team. And I think Vanderbilt is that perfect shining example of that.
Well, the big story, one of the big stories of this football game is going to be Diego Pavia. Fozzie, I think he should be higher in the Heisman standings than he is right now. And I think this is the day that if he can pull it off 2 years in a row, go 4-0 against the state of Alabama in his college career, I think this could be the day he could be thrust on the entire country and not just on the Southeastern Conference.
Well, Corey, I'm sure you've already heard it multiple times throughout the course of this week. Johnny Manziel, obviously former Heisman Trophy winner, will also be on the sideline. But I bring that up just to talk about some of the similarities in their game, right? People have talked about it ad nauseum, even before he got to Vanderbilt and he was at New Mexico State. It's something about Diego that it just gives you that it factor, right? He provides it, whether he's throwing the ball, he provides it, whether he's running the ball. But then the it factor about it is the leadership capabilities that he's able to possess and then elevate his team status to the next level. And that's that leadership that you can't necessarily quantify through any sort of ranking or through any statistical data. And I think that's where the Heisman kind of viewers and the voters, the ones that are impacting the odds currently, aren't necessarily taken into account with what Diego Pavia has been able to create and continue to use from a momentum perspective, from a chip on the shoulder type of perspective, and then just a maturity perspective. That leadership, you can't necessarily quantify. And we always have this conversation about, the MVP of the NBA, right? LeBron James is arguably the best player every single year, but he doesn't necessarily win the MVP every single year because of the value to the team kind of changes from team to team and player to player. Well, that's how I feel like the underappreciation for Diego Pavia is with this team. You take Diego Pavia off, this team doesn't look the same. This team does not have the same type of attitude or the moxie or the swagger that Diego Pavia provides. And I think from that alone, that should increase his Heisman odds. And like I said, you just can't quantify what he means to be in that locker room leading these guys day in and day out.
Yeah, Fozzie Whitaker gets it.
Yeah, I have no notes on that. I mean, he hit it right on the head with everything, especially Pavia there.
Yeah, I was. That's the first time I've talked to Fozzie Whitaker, and I don't want to have a conversation where I just agree with the guy the whole way, but it was nice to hear someone from outside of Music City understanding his true value.
More people will if they win this game too.
Yeah, I mean we call it Pavia magic. There's no other way. I mean, I've been here a long time. I've been here a long time, and he is lightning in a bottle. And I am very curious to see how far he takes this team this year and what they can do once he's gone. Because I worry about that, because for all of us and for Vanderbilt, I want to see them continuing to succeed because it's a lot more fun to talk about.
Absolutely.
But those guys don't come around every day. That's what makes it all so special. All right, we've got more coming up on College Game Day after the break, so stick around. Saturday on News 2, find your pizza place of choice and just lock it down on the Barca-Lounger for about 10 straight hours. It starts at 11 a.m. with Kentucky and Georgia on News 2. At 2:30, Vanderbilt and Alabama, the revenge game for the Crimson Tide, the validation game for the Commodores and Diego Pavia. Then in prime time, it's a Sunshine State showdown. The number 3 ranked Miami Hurricanes and number 18 Florida State going head-to-head. Tennessee on a bye week. Their next game, the Arkansas Razorbacks. And I can't even believe I'm saying this. Bobby Petrino is back.
Yeah, Sam Pittman getting fired. Bobby Petrino, the interim, taking over. Certainly will be interesting. I will say, looking ahead at Tennessee, going into that game against Arkansas and then the rest of their schedule.
Does Arkansas play this weekend? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
No,
with that.
actually, let me check that for you. I was just gonna say that Tennessee's schedule is a little bit more digestible. No, they're also on a bye.
Okay, so they've got 2 weeks with Bobby. Petrino.
Yeah, to try to get fresh and figure things out with him at the helm. But their schedule for Tennessee a lot more digestible because you got the Bama game after that one. And then you got Oklahoma, which Mateer is supposed to be back. John Mateer, their quarterback, is supposed to be back by then, but I guess you never know. And then pretty much, New Mexico State, Florida, Kentucky's in there. Those are all winnable games, and then until Vanderbilt. Yeah. So when we said earlier in the show that everything's right in front of Tennessee still, there is a really good chance because of how favorable that schedule is to get back to a playoff.
Yes, it does. And I mean, look, they can't mess around with Arkansas. Arkansas is not a good football team. It's shocking to me that Bobby Petrino gets another chance, not just because of the humiliation of the way he left Fayetteville the first time, but because when he got his second go round at Louisville, it did not go well. But he is getting a second chance, and I just look forward to the SEC short on Twitter after his return. But so the Tennessee has 2 weeks to get ready for the coaching change at Arkansas. Josh Heupel talked earlier this week about being on the bye.
You can point to last year and the way that we played. Coming off of a bye week. You look at last week, excited, happy about the way that we competed, went and played the next series, the way that we finished the game. But there's a lot of things that we can do a lot better, and that's in every phase of the game, but certainly offensively and special teams. And whether you win or lose, it's dealing with what the reality is and how do you get better.
Julian, he talked about the way they played last year coming off the bye. I think the leadership at Tennessee and the culture within the team this year is, even though last year's team went to the playoff, I think it's better this year. I think they're a more unified group that will show up more prepared to play coming out of the bye this time.
Yeah, Joey Aguilar, I think it starts with him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's played a lot of football. He's played at different levels. He knows that he's been in a spot at Appalachian State where you can't take any game for granted. No. And I also like the way that he willed his team to victory.
That was a huge drive.
Even though it wasn't the offense as a whole, it wasn't their best day.
But when they had to have 6 points, he did it.
And he did it himself. And that was really, really impressive. It was also kind of like, hey, the defense gave us some gifts earlier in the game. Let me repay you guys by the biggest moment, getting the biggest play that we need. When we needed to make a play, I made it.
I think also having a loss, I'm not going to say that helps them, but it lets them know we can't have a hiccup.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't have, was it Arkansas they lost last year?
Yes.
Yeah. They can't have a hiccup like they did last year against Arkansas. And I'm just going to say they know how humiliating it would be to lose to Bobby Petrino.
Yeah. I guess you hope for Arkansas, if you're their perspective, you always hear when a coach gets fired, they'll have like a jump start kind of game. You hope that Tennessee could weather whatever that storm may be.
I mean, yes. You like to think Tennessee's a better football team.
Yeah.
I mean, they
are.
That team just got run by Notre Dame.
Right.
I mean, people were wondering if they could put the stake in Notre Dame and finish them. They were finished at halftime. That game was what I call a good old-fashioned pig picking. Okay? I mean, because that was over at halftime. We'll see. I know Bobby Petrino's made some changes to the coaching staff there as well. So what does a team do on a bye week? They usually get back to basics, all right? Usually work on fundamentals. It's usually a time to work with some of the backup players as well and some of the younger players. But for the head coach, it's usually a time to face some questions that he doesn't get on a normal game week.
Your daughter was named homecoming queen. Just how cool was that for your family? And in a past life, was Josh Heupel homecoming king?
Was not, no. But it was a cool moment for her. Hopefully that speaks to who she is inside of that school and how she interacts with everybody that's there. Wife got a chance to see it and be there, and it was a cool moment for her.
Couldn't even crack a smile.
I mean, unflappable, Josh Heupel.
I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I talk about her a lot. I know that. And you know why? because she is what I am most proud of in this world. And I'm sure he doesn't want his kids to be a story. I get that. And when you're a football coach at a major institution, you don't want your family subject to be part of it, because when it's good, it can be really good, but when it's bad, it can be horrible. And so I get that, but
Come on, man.
you can smile.
The same answer he would give about facing Arkansas is the same tone that he gave there about his daughter's homecoming. Turn it off for a second, man.
You know what? You know what I'm going to start doing? I'm going to break into his locker and I'm going to cut all the sleeves off of his hoodies.
Yeah.
Because he is Bill Belichick 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not that this is what's frustrating. It's not that he's boring. He's intentionally trying to be boring.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick is not that boring. If you put Bill Belichick, I mean, like, have you seen, they had a show about the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
And they had Belichick on it. He was amazing.
Yeah.
Because he's a real historian of the league. And he was animated and excited and happy to talk about stuff. But when he talks about his football team, he is not going to give you anything. And he is going to be as boring as he can be. And I got news for you. Even though you got all those rings, being boring didn't win a single one of them for you.
We know he's not boring. We've seen him do gymnastics with his 24-year-old girlfriend on the beach.
I didn't say that. He's got to be entertaining enough to keep her, happy.
Yeah.
She's 24. She got more energy than I do. She's at the beach.
Yeah.
If I'm at the beach, I'm just laid out. Birds pecking at me. All right, we got 1 minute to go. What are you looking forward to this college weekend?
I mean, it's the Vanderbilt-Alabama game. It's the game of the weekend.
Okay.
Is Alabama, will they get the revenge, or will Vanderbilt introduce themselves to the rest of the college football world? This edition of Vanderbilt, I like the Commodores in this game.
Well, okay, make a pick. Make a pick. I'll say make a pick.
I like Vanderbilt 27-24.
I like Vanderbilt 38-35.
Okay,
I think it's
a little bit more high scoring.
I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. I have one hope for this football game. All right. And that is, it's in the fourth quarter. There's 2 minutes to go. It's a one-score game, and the ball is in Diego Pavia's hands.
Oh, man.
That is all I want to see, because, that's the moment his Heisman hopes are going to sink or swim.
Absolutely.
And he could make it happen. All right, that's going to do it for Game Day Preview this week. We want to remind you, we're going to be back tomorrow with Sports Extra Daily at 6:30. We'll see you then.